I'm co-host James Ash.
And I'm co-host Phil Scaife.
Welcome to the Business Lockdown. It brings me great pleasure to welcome on today's show Paul Spence from P.A.U.L for Brain Recovery. Now, we have had the pleasure of interviewing some amazing people on this show, and I don't feel it's unfair to say that welcoming Paul, a friend of mine, has the most inspirational story, certainly from my point, over the years. Unfortunately, Paul was injured in an unprovoked attack back in 2012 in Hull, East Yorkshire. A mistaken identity, and Paul go a little bit more into that and his journey before, during and since, which is phenomenal. So be prepared to be inspired today, listeners and viewers. It was actually a day, a friend and I, Ricardo and I, were back from Manchester in a taxi from a gig, and we got a call and we were told what had happened and how serious it was, and we were getting I think another call had come through and another call, and it was just horrific, really. And actually, my friends were the band in the bar that night. John and Jen, who played in a band called We Ghosts, were in the bar on that night, and it all got closed down. And I even got insight. I remember the insight from them and the seriousness of it all. And proper Phoenix from the Flame story. Facing adversity, coming through some of the most difficult times we can imagine. With some unbelievable missions, and finding himself on never stepping foot in a gym to being on the front cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, if that doesn't give you a snippet into this inspirational guy and his story, I'm not sure. Well, Paul Spence, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Phil. Thanks, James.
Well, how are you, mate? I mean, we caught up briefly the other day, and you asked how I've been, and I give it a summary over the past 18 months, which have been some big changes in my life. And I purposely put the brakes on, so I would find out, naturally, authentically, on this episode and for our listeners and viewers. So, I mean, how are things at the moment? I know there's been some trials and tribulations recently with yourself, and then let's go back to to that kind of that horrible incident back in 2012 and how it's changed your life and those around you.
Yeah, so should we start there then? Start in 2012.
Yeah.
Attack without provocation, just wrong time, wrong place. I went out with some friends just on Princess Avenue and went to a bar, and we actually went to Garbutt's, I think it was. Went in there, had a drink, and then we were moving on. I mean, Mum actually came to Garbutt's with my stepdad. So my brother and I stayed there. The lads moved on. We had a drink with my mum. It was a bank holiday weekend, so it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we went on to find my friends. Actually, my brother, he flagged the taxi. And we were about to get in it, and I said, no, let's go find the lads. So we very nearly didn't, nearly go in P.A.U.L, which is where they were. And things would have been very different if we hadn't done, obviously. My life would have been very different. But we didn't get in that taxi. We said, no, we'll go catch the lads, and we'll all go together to town. And so I went in P.A.U.L. I don't remember any of this, by the way, obviously, due to the injury. And I got about even a month before this happened to me, I don't remember anything. So this has all been made up from friends, family, and evidence in the court. So I went into P.A.U.L, and my friends were there, and they were supping up, ready to go. And I said, I just need the toilet. So went through the crowd into the loo. It was packed in P.A.U.L. Unbeknownst to my friends, unbeknownst to myself, there was some friction with some other lads at the other end of the bar. And as I literally went into the toilet, door shut behind me, all hell broke loose. There were glasses getting thrown. I think someone got glassed in the leg. Stools getting thrown, like a Wild West saloon. I was completely oblivious, obviously, in the toilet. And as I came out of the cubicle looking down, doing my buttons up, one of the people that started this fight walked in, and for whatever reason, he just uppercutted me. I didn't see that coming at all. One punch, hit me with force, and I wasn't on balance, obviously. And I flew back with force and hit my head on the ceramic floor. And this person ran off. And the people in the toilet were likened that impact to two snooker balls smashing together. They were frightened. I could see I was in big trouble, unconscious. And an ambulance were called, and I was blue lighted to Hull Royal Infirmary with suspected brain trauma. I had some scans, and it proves that was correct. I'd had a frontal lobe brain hemorrhage. So I'd gone back, if you can imagine, gone back, and the ricochet from hitting the floor to, your brain's just sat in that cerebral fluid. The ricochet, literally, my brain is smashed into the front of my skull, that bony, ridgy skull. And I had that bleed and contusions, which are all bruising around the front of my brain. And a very complex organ responsible for so much we all take for granted. And that was all compromised for me. I was taken to Ward 440, neurosurgical ward. I was unconscious for a few days. I woke up. My dad was actually bedside with me, and he was delighted, to see me, my eyes open, I came to life. And then I immediately went into a seizure. And my dad said I made a noise that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He thought I was dying. He thought that was it for me. I was rushed to intensive care, where I spent a week or so in the ICU. Thankfully, I recovered, but, got a bit better to be able to go back to neurosurgical ward. And then I spent about 6 weeks, another 6 weeks on there, until I was clinically okay to go home. From what I remember, I had fantastic care in Hull Royal Infirmary. I couldn't praise them enough. Actually, you'll hear in a minute how much I was thankful for that, and how much my friends and family were all thankful for that. They did something amazing to say thank you. And that's when I was discharged, that's when the real struggle began. We were told that I would have a 2 to 3 year recovery, and at the end I would never be the same. So the brain is so complex, as I said earlier. There are very little answers as to how someone will recover. We're genetically all different. Although we've all got a brain, obviously, we're genetically all different. Your lifestyle choices and your recovery journey, your coping strategies will all determine how you will heal and function going forward. And when I was at home, I immediately in fact, in the early days, I was in a daze. I just spent my days just sort of staring into space for minutes at a time. And I was completely oblivious again to this. I knew something was wrong, but my understanding of life was just different, and you can only function off what you've got. And so my brain was trying to repair itself, and new neural pathways were trying to be built. And I spent a lot of time just sort of walking around the house, pacing my hands together. I couldn't leave the house alone for the first 4 months of my recovery. I was just too confused, not even to the local shop. And thankfully, I had lots of great friends and family that would come and care for me. And I think they were more frightened for me at that time. They saw the true impact. They was all sound of mind. They saw the true impact of the injury and what it had done to me. And I was just living very much in this bubble. My relationship suffered, obviously, with my partner, with everybody, if I'm honest with you, with my children. They were looking at me thinking, where's active dad? The man we depend on, who takes us here, takes us there, and who we have activities with, and who cares for us. And there I was, a man who was just sort of very vulnerable, lost and confused, just staring into space. Love and affection had gone for me. I had no feelings to anything or anybody in early recovery. Obviously, frontal lobe of your brain, its emotions, its personality, complex thinking, executive functions, your planning, your organising, concentration, attention, are all here at the front there. And there was no answer to any of that was going to come back, remember. So, it's just one big devastating situation for everybody. I was at the centre of a ripple, and it was going out affecting everything and everybody in my life. Obviously, pre-brain injury, I'd been an electrical engineer. If I'm bouncing about a bit here, just try and keep up with me.
No, that's
I'd been an electrical engineer. I'd been an electrician since I was 16. I'd worked hard at school to get good grades. Well, sort of worked hard at school. And I'd got some decent grades, enough to get me an electrical apprenticeship. And I worked hard at college to become qualified. And then I worked hard to become an electrical engineer foreman. I was running jobs at BP Chemicals, at Reckitt's, and the hospitals in the city. 10, 20 guys, managing 10, 20 guys, £1 million contracts, very, very complex, executive function sort of abilities. And I'm not being boastful. I was good at it. I was good at my job. I had great relationships with the lads, and I enjoyed it, and I was well paid. And if I'm honest, I thought that would be my career forever. Obviously, after brain injury, I was sat there staring out the window, sort of looking out, not even being able to go out alone to the shop, like I said. So that was difficult for my family, and the income was changed. Everything around me was just different, if I'm honest with you. It affected relationships, like I said.
Yeah, because Paul, what's the stat? There's an incredibly high stat of people who suffer with brain injuries that divorce, that split up. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, there's a huge number of people who do split up after brain injury. I mean, obviously, acquired brain injury. There's 1.3 million people living with acquired brain injury in the UK, and I think there's an acquired brain injury every 90 seconds in the UK. So acquired brain injury, when they were talking stroke, brain tumour, brain trauma, which is obviously what happened to myself, aneurysm, and lots of other infections, meningitis, encephalitis. So it's any damage to the brain after birth. So it's not congenital or it's not degenerative. It's just damage, after birth. So there's a huge number of people who are struggling, and actually it's not just the individual who is left struggling; it's everyone around them. Because like I say, you rely so much, rely on your brain for everything. Everything we're doing now, we're moving, thinking, sort of planning, organising. It's keeping us functioning at our best. And once it's compromised, life is very different. And it's such a long recovery journey, and it comes with different challenges throughout, brain recovery. I mean, I was lucky in some respects. I was unlucky what happened to me. I'm lucky I survived. And as I was going through my recovery journey, I was lucky to be recovering. Some people, unfortunately, depending on the severity of their injury and where it is, have very, very limited recovery. After about sort of 6 months during my recovery, it was almost like a dimmer switch had been switched on. I started to have a bit more sort of thoughts. This was good, I was always waking up from the fog, if you like. And I wanted to put that to good use. And I did this little circuit in my living room. I did three press-ups, 3 sit-ups, and 3 squats. And that was all I could manage at the time. It was only a small circuit, but everybody has to start somewhere. And that's where that was it for me. And I felt good about that. Up until that point, I don't even think I'd thought about what a press-up was. I'm talking about my thinking was so minimal. I was wandering around the house. I had no thought. You'll think about lots of different things, all these thoughts rushing through your mind about going to the shops for this, that, the other, or going here, going there. That was all gone. My mind was so, my mind was so quiet, but I couldn't articulate this to anybody. It wasn't like I had a damaged brain. I was sound of mind. I had a damaged brain, and I knew how it all worked. Because you just don't. You just feel it's very alien. You sort of sat there thinking, I know something's wrong, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Because you can only function off what you've got. The bit that's missing, it's not obvious to someone that's brain injured. So it just adds to the dilemma, if I'm honest with you. And I was acting in certain ways. My behaviour was different with my family, with my friends. My thinking was different. But I couldn't tell people why. And they were maybe looking, thinking, why is he doing this or why is he doing that? That's not characteristic of Paul. But I lost that damage. That 2 to 3 year recovery, at the end you'll never be the same. I lost part of my identity I was never going to get back. That was very difficult for people. I mean, people were looking at me and they're thankful that I'd survived, but they had to mourn somebody that was gone forever. I mean, even my brother now, I'll bounce back to where I'm. Even my brother now would say, Mark, who I'm very close with, he would say, I am thankful for everything I'm thankful you survived, I'm thankful for everything you're doing, but you're not the brother I grew up with. So to him, he lost somebody. It's deep, deep, deep loss. But he had to go through years of wondering if I will get it back there. That adds to his pain. Will he be able? All these things, and he'll look at me and think about things that I wouldn't necessarily even think that he'll think. That's all his loss, isn't it? And that's very personal to him. So, and that'll be the same for my mum, for Gemma, for everyone around me. But getting back to 6 months in, it's getting positive, and that was hard for everybody. More so my family and friends in the early days. Then I was in that fog, and that's my brain injury was safeguarding me. I think brain injury does safeguard, because if you saw the true extent of, and even today, it still safeguards me. If I knew the true extent of my loss, I think it would send me insane. I do, yeah. I think it would send me insane. Actually, and I feel like sometimes I'm on the cusp of that. Actually, not that I'm going to go insane, but I feel like I've been a very good pre-brain injury. I was deep thinker, metacognition at work. I was thinking about, the lads, where there was, what materials they needed. I like to be the best that I could be in myself, and I was I wouldn't say very spiritual, but I was just a really deep. I was a deep thinker, and I think that actually that trait of me, although it was different, has stayed with me. So even after the injury, I was constantly sort of thinking about, as and when I could. In the first year, I couldn't necessarily, but later on, as I was improving and recovering more, so I could think about why I was acting in certain ways, and it was important that I understood that, being the person that I was. And actually, that's been good for me in terms of me being able to articulate to other people and to even clinicians and neuropsychologists now how it is to live with a brain injury. But I have often thought, if I go too far with this and I really understand it, and I really understand the loss, I think it could go the other way for me, and it would be very very negative. Yeah. So I've got to be careful how far I go with it. That's the thing.
Have we got a code word? It's like Oklahoma, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember sat with you. I think we were with a group of friends at one point, Paul, and kind of on the opposite of what you've just said was, there was at a point where people would then just take it that you were back to normal. Oh, yeah. And you would sit there and people wouldn't realise how you weren't able to piece certain things together, and you couldn't just sit there and understand it all. It was such an effort to keep on, like, semi on track with what people are talking about, but people didn't know that. I remember sat with you and giving insight into that, and it's just like, wow, it's, it's easy to think that it's all back to normal again. And I remember you saying, look, I might never be back to normal. And I'm like really certain how tiring it was to just do normal things and have normal conversations, day-to-day conversations with people. I remember that moment. That was just like, right, it's, there's no bigger fight than what was happening with yourself, within yourself. So yeah, I do remember that. Paul, just give us a bit of insight into what happened with your attacker, because I mean there should be no greater deterrent for thinking that smacking someone one punch won't do severe harm, and this is a clear example of that, and that should be the greatest deterrent. Certainly, the story you've just given us insight into, and we'll continue in this episode. But give us insight on what happened to your attacker following the incident.
So we went to court, and then he was sent to prison. I can't, to be honest, I can't remember the exact the length of time he was sent to prison. At that time, if I'm honest with you, it didn't necessarily matter to me. This was about 18 months after the injury when we went to Crown Court, and I just wanted to be finished. I had to be very resourceful for how I was. A lot of people used to say to me, "Are you angry towards the person that did it?" And I've never been angry, ever. I've never been, because I knew that I had very limited energy. I struggled a lot with neuro fatigue, and I had to use my mind space wisely. Just intuitively, I always knew that, and even today, I still know that. And I knew that wasting my time and energy on thinking about someone that had done wrong to me was never going to do me any good. It wasn't productive. And so I always just left that. So at the time when we went to court, justice was served. He was sent to prison, and obviously I could follow on with my recovery. And there was obviously no winners that day. I'm sure that person hadn't gone out thinking, I'm going to do this to somebody, and that time it had gone wrong for that person. Red mist, whatever it was, I'm not sure. It landed obviously on someone that wasn't looking, and had fallen with force. And so naturally, it could have ended up very, very even worse than that. It could have ended up in tragedy, and literally I could have died. And my family were told that in Hull Royal Infirmary. And since being on my journey, I'll get on to talking in schools about the one punch and other things. But I've met a mum from Newcastle, and other people whose loved ones have passed away. So they've ended up in the hospital like myself, and they haven't pulled through. They've slipped away, and they're not here to tell the tale. And so a lot of what I do, which I'll go on to talk about, is not only for people affected by acquired brain injury, but people that aren't here to sort of say, and fight for themselves and tell how it is for them. And so that's what I'm raising awareness is for those people as well. Rest in peace, all of them. And if I can do anything on behalf of them, if they was here, they'd have a chance. They would do what I'm trying to do. I know they would. So for those as well.
There have been a number of campaigns, haven't there, on the one? Is it the one kill punch? What's the one punch kill? It's like
Australia. There's a killer. I think is it the killer punch or something they call it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all different terms for different areas of the world. But yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem everywhere. A king punch. The king punch. That's what they call it.
Right.
Yeah. Which is nothing. That's just completely ridiculous. There's nothing king about something. When we think of king, that's a high figure, and even that term is completely wrong to even attach it to something so dreadful in the way what it can do to somebody. Even we're talking obviously acquired brain injury, death, acquired brain injury, and even just breaking someone's jaw or just really disfiguring them or anything. It's just completely reckless, manless, and it doesn't need to happen. And so hopefully what I do, and I know there's other people that work tirelessly around the world trying to raise awareness of one punch and the implications, not only on the victim, but on the attacker. Like I said, there's no winners. He went to prison, so his life was ruined through that manless act. And other people will also, go through that. And I can't imagine any human would want to do that to somebody else. Not unless you're complete nut job or something. You're not going to want to, are you? It's just something that's gone wrong in the heat of the moment. So if I can raise that awareness, help people to think, and obviously try and practice some emotional intelligence. Breathe your way out of that situation. And when people when you're young, especially you get into these confrontational situations with your friends and everything else. We know how it all feels. But it's about just being calm in that moment and thinking, can I live with myself if this goes wrong? And that's why I try and get people into that way of thinking. Have them breathing techniques, walk away. That's something that I've been doing recently. But I'll jump back to recovery, and I'll take you.
I was going to say, it sounds like your journey. Like it's quite. There's a lot of positivity in your journey since the incident, and you started to talk about your little circuit in your lounge with your 3 press-ups and 3 squats. And so I just wanted to see where that took you, because you've alluded to something at the beginning of the chat, and I want to say, where does that head? So at this time, just in that 6 months sort of previous to that, so I had a stutter, I had traumatic labyrinthitis, I'd started my neuropsychology at Castle Hill, which was 1 hour a week with a neuropsychologist. I was very lucky to get a neuropsychologist. There was only one in the city at that time. There's a lot of you gets to see her, which I'll talk to you about later on. And I was fortunate to have therapy with Selene Osmond. She's called, not Selene Ackman, she's called Osmond now. An amazing lady. And so, speech impediment, sort of traumatic labyrinthitis. I was very slow cognitively. But I started this circuit, and it just felt wonderful. And so I started doing this over the next few weeks, and then I was readmitted into Hull Royal Infirmary because every time I looked up, I sort of started shaking, and the thought it was some swelling on my brain from the impact of the fall, and they said it would go away. Well, actually, it never. And at this time, I had 4 months where I couldn't go out alone, and I just started this little circuit. I sort of plucked up the courage and the energy and sort of to go to the local shop on my own. And then actually I went to town on my own, which was a huge step on my journey. I was very, at this point, I was starting to be very aware that I was slow and I was very vulnerable. But I got on that bus to town. It was one of the biggest steps for me, I'd ever take. I got on the bus to town, and I got to town, and I felt quite frightened
because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. But I didn't know why at the time. I'll be able to tell you why in a minute. But I just knew that I was short on thinking. That's all I knew at the time. And I had a poor memory, and I was confused a lot. But I knew I had to do this. I had to go back out into the world. You know, I couldn't hide behind closed doors. It was important for me and for my journey. I had to be brave. And so I did that. But what I did was I had a bottle of water, whatever it was, and I was walking along and I had this drink, and I started staggering through town. And it was this feeling. When I look up, I started shaking. And so I was readmitted back into Hull Royal Infirmary, because actually I wasn't sure if when I'd been hit, the impact had knocked a vein off course. And when I was putting my head like this, it was snagging it, and the blood flow was stopping. Or I'd done something to my neck, one of the bones in my neck or something. I had all sorts of scans because they just couldn't figure out what it was. I was in there for about 2 days. I felt quite deflated, if I'm honest, lads. I felt like I started this little circuit at home. I'd gone back out to town on my own, and I felt like I was almost getting somewhere. You know, I was starting to rebuild my life. And then I was sitting on the Royal Infirmary for a few days, and then I had a wonderful neurologist called Dr. Ming, or Mr. Ming, Mr. Ming, and he determined it had been traumatic labyrinthitis, which is the inner ear canals. And it had been inflamed by the impact of the fall, the impact of the injury, and there was all they'd been inflamed, and so they'd set all my balance structures off place. And when I was looking up, it was sending me out, and I had some medication. They sort of told me that it would go on for a while, but hopefully it would repair itself. But at least I had some answers. And when I got home, I felt really deflated. I sort of sat sitting there, and I thought, what am I going to do with myself? This is naff. I was about 6-7 months in, and I was thinking about the 2 to 3 year recovery and all that. And I thought about, I felt myself sort of slipping into a bit of sort of depression, if you like. As I said earlier, in the early recovery, I had no emotion at all to anything, but I could feel this overwhelming sense of like sort of darkness, and I knew it wasn't good for me. And I thought about the circuit that I'd done in my living room and the circuits I had been doing over the next few weeks. And I thought, I need to continue with that. And so I did. You know, I pulled myself back, did that. And then a couple of weeks passed, and I was feeling good again about that. I thought, I need to go join the gym. This is what my next step. And so I went to the gym. Luckily, at the time, I was living near Beverley Road, around the corner from Fitness First. Mm-hmm. It was only a walk away from me. It was really handy, obviously. I couldn't drive. I'd had to send my driving licence back to DVLA. And I went to the gym, and I was stood there for about 20 minutes, just not wanting to go in. I didn't. You know, I was anxious, I was vulnerable. And in early recovery, if you said to me, "Are you all right, Paul?" I could sort of like stare at you for sort of a few seconds at a time. And it could be quite uncomfortable for someone who didn't know my situation. Mm-hmm. You know, because I was processing information. Or, you know, what day it is. I might look frightened at you because I might have thought, I don't know. So it was just strange, you know. So, and I was thinking about going in there, and I thought, what if people ask me something or talk to me? I thought, how am I going to be able to engage in conversation? I don't feel very confident in myself. And I stood outside, but I just knew intuitively I had to do this. And I plucked at that courage, and thank God I did. And it was the smallest step into that gym, one small step, but one huge step in terms of what it would go on for, you know, for me and how I would develop. And when I went into the gym, I sort of looked around, and my memory was so poor. I was just sort of found myself sitting on machines and thinking I almost don't know what to do. So, yeah. And I just sort of get there and I stand there and do the obvious sort of, you know, maybe doing some bicep curls or something. But I thought, I can't come and do this every day. And so I thought about getting a personal trainer to help me. I knew I needed some guidance and some support in the gym. And what I did was I arranged to see a personal trainer. And just before my first session, in that 6 months when I'd been doing, since I'd started these little circuits at home, my partner Gemma had been buying me some men's health magazines. I think she just thought she was helping in some way. And, you know, to sort of help me develop my circuits at home and things like that. And I had taken an interest. I wasn't so good with reading stuff because I've been processing information again, but I was looking at pictures and I got the gist of what it was trying to tell me, you know. and it was helpful. And just before that first session with my personal trainer, I got Gemma to take a photo of me. I said, Gemma, take a photo of me. I mean, at the time, I was like a little bag of bones, really, because, you know, I was malnourished and I wasn't looking very well at all. My eating habits weren't very good at the time. My personal care, if I'm honest, probably wasn't very good. You know, that regular routine and everything else. Mm-hmm. So I just sort of wasted away. And so when I asked Gemma, she said, "What, don't take a photo before?" I was stood there in my pants. And I said, "I'm going to be in men's health." And I think she thought the injury had sent me bonkers, to be honest with you. You don't know, what do you mean? What do you mean, Frank? And I was just like, yeah, well, you know, I'm going to be in that men's health magazine you've been buying me. And I was like quite adamant. I said, take this photo. And I told my personal trainer, and I think he also thought that I'd gone bonkers. But, you know, for me, what I thought is, strangely, I'm going to go for this long recovery. If I can get into men's health later in my recovery, it'll be a message of hope and hopeful inspiration to other people at the start of their recovery. And to be honest, lads, I didn't realistically know if I could achieve that. But just thinking that became such a positive influence on my recovery. And actually, I think it saved me, if I'm honest, because I put everything into it. Such a positive focus along a very negative recovery. Because day in, day out, all my thinking was I was just crap at thinking. I was forget stuff. I'd forget to lock the door. I'd forget to turn the toaster off. I'd forget to do this. I'd forget to do that. And when I thought about things, or I had a conversation, it was just hard work. Any choice, do you want on TV? I would just look at you like it was like $1 million question. I was like, I don't know, because it was just tough. And so when I went to the gym, and I was getting told to do this, do that, and I was almost good at it. You know, I was good at sort of, you know, just pumping iron or going for a little walk on treadmill. And I had to start small and build that up. But it was so positive. And obviously, you know, naturally, you know, chemically, you know, endorphins and everything else was so good for me. And it was actually nourishing me and making me feel good. I'd obviously have to be aesthetically pleasing if I was going to get in men's health. So I had to go on a certain diet. And when I was eating these foods, I did start showing results. I was putting all my effort into this. I was a very driven person anyway, pre-brain injury, and thankfully that had stayed with me. And I was putting everything in. I'd look forward to my gym sessions. I'd work really hard, and then I would go home and eat good foods. And what I thought is, when I was sort of starting to look a bit better, is it's all right looking good, but really needs to be feeling good on the inside as well. And what about nourishing my brain? I was feeling good from the training. But I thought even deeper than that, and I thought about, you know, this nourishing of my brain and giving it the help it needed. I was on a lot of medication at the time, and I thought, how can I help it in a natural sense? So my family and I started researching foods that would aid, you know, my brain function and just put function all as one in all systems. And we found some brain healthy ingredients. My family would go out and buy these, and I would go out and buy these ingredients and put them in my meals. It gave them good feeling that was helping me, because actually there was only certain things that could help me with, and actually preparing good food was one of those things. So I was working hard, I was eating well, working hard in the gym, eating well. As I was recovering more, it was a good thing, you know. And looking back, I'm so thankful for recovering like I have. And I had more mind space. I could sort of understand things better, because previously my understanding of life was very different as well. So I could understand things better. The only consequence of repair was depression.
Right.
You know, as you can imagine, it's almost like I'd come out the fog and sort of thought, my life's in pieces, and it had been in pieces from day one. I'd just not been able to see it. So that started really affecting me. I'd gone back to work. My neuropsychologist just said, you'll never be a foreman again at work, and we're not sure you'll be an electrician due to the wide range of knowledge, complex thinking, fault finding, and obviously memory. You need to have a good memory when you're an electrician turning stuff off, otherwise you're going to hurt somebody. And she said, we're not sure, I just have to go on the recovery journey and see how it's going to be. I sort of spoke to the gaffer, and I was on the bones of my arse, if I'm honest, lads. I had no money. obviously.
Well, you went from, I think I remember right, you went from foreman level to basically being an apprentice, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the increase, the difference of level, but it was. I remember you saying it was the feeling that you were like a spare part, that you were just there because people wanted to kind of care for you. And you didn't feel any kind of worth in a professional capacity. I remember that was really tough to talk with you about that. Now that's a difference, isn't it? You know, you've got that achievement of you're going back to work, so it's kind of like a step forward and then 2 steps back because you're at such a different level and you feel you're being carried in. Yeah, that must have been difficult.
Yeah, it was, mate. And you know, I've gone from the strongest link to the weakest. I was the best that you probably wouldn't want on site, to be honest with you. But I've been good. And I can laugh about it now, you know. And the trouble is with brain injury is if you're at work, you know your place at work, you break your arm, or you have an illness, or you have an injury, and you repair and you go back and you carry on. Well, actually, you know, this wasn't the case for myself. I was never going to be able to carry on like I was ever. I wasn't sure at what capacity I was going to be able to reach it and what I could do. And so, really, I went back too early for a start, and I advise everybody now at the Brain Recovery Centre not to do that, because I think it's just a thing of wanting to get back into normal life. And like I say, your skin, you know you're different, but you just want to prove to yourself that you can do it. And you know, the person that I was like that anyway. So I wanted to get back to some normality. Actually, when I did get back, it probably wasn't how I felt. I was struggling every day. I only managed half a day a week at first, if I'm honest with you. When I got on site, the noises from all different directions and all the multiple conversations was really difficult for me to process. Actually, I felt quite frightened, if I'm honest, lads, when I was at work. I felt frightened and I felt vulnerable. And my brother was with me, Mark, so we worked together. So he was with me. He used to come and pick me up because I couldn't drive, obviously. And so he had my back, and all the lads. I'd been a real good foreman. Luckily, I'd been a good foreman to lads, and rightly so. I'd been a good foreman to lads. I'd always looked after them. You know, I'd let them go early if they needed to. If there was a family problem, I'd go away. I'll let you book the hours. Don't worry about it. I was good. I was good to them, and we were a team. You know, like a band of brothers. We were like a family, grafted day in, day out with each other, and we supported each other. And that's the sort of the culture that I wanted within my team. And so when I went back, they really had my back. They looked after me, and it helped a lot. It helped, and as I was recovering, as I was getting more feelings back, it sort of broke my heart as well. You know, like apprentices that I'd brought up throughout their time, sort of 4 or 5 of them. I was sort of scratching my head and looking at them and saying, I don't know what to do, and I could see it was breaking their heart as well. For them to be having to sort of tell me what to do, and I was forgetting my tools, simple jobs of sockets and lights, just stuff that I wasn't even doing anymore. You know, I was more reading drawings and all the complex stuff. I was having to go back to basics, forgetting my tools, jobs that would take 5 minutes were taking me half an hour. Really, really difficult, and it was a daily stamp on my sort of self-esteem and my pride. But I just thought I'll just keep at this. You know, I'll just keep doing it, and hopefully I'll develop, and hopefully I'll get better. But and just going back to your conversation earlier on, James, about keeping up with conversations with the lads and feeling part of the lads. I was doing this with our circle with work, but it was so difficult, and I didn't tell everyone how difficult it was necessarily at the time. Obviously, confided in you at some stage, but there were times when I never did that, and actually I was my own worst enemy at certain times.
Right.
In early recovery, I couldn't explain why I was acting in certain ways. I couldn't articulate how I was feeling even. But when I could, I never. And I'm not sure if it was just an instinct and a pride thing, if I was just trying to get on with it or prove to myself I could do it. But it didn't do me any favours. And obviously, I talk about that at the Brain Recovery Centre to other people and encourage them to really open up and get the help they need. And so conversations when I was at work, and the lads would be on about a certain time on site, and there was all sort of sitting there laughing at the dinner hour, and I was trying to keep up with them, but multiple conversations was hard for me anyway to compute. and I was trying to keep up. And then they would say, "Do you remember?" And sometimes I'd just nod and sort of blag it and say, "Yeah," but I didn't have a clue, and that was deflating as well. And then when they'd mentioned something, and I'd really sit there and I'd really try and think about what they were talking about. By the time I remembered and I said it, they'd start laughing and say, "Mate, that conversation finished 10 minutes ago." And so they didn't mean it. Like, they didn't realise it. I'd go, "Oh, no, no." And I'd start laughing. But, you know, you just felt useless. You just felt useless, worthless. And he was very good at blagging and nodding your head and trying to feel part of the group. But actually, he was very, very distant, very isolated. And no one really knew, obviously, because my injury was invisible. You know, I was fortunate. My mobility was okay. It was always okay, apart from when obviously the traumatic labyrinthitis. But other than that, it was all cognitive and behavioural. You know, emotional, and executive functions, as I said earlier, which people can't see. So as soon as people see you walking, talking, naturally people will think you're all right. And it's not that I don't think people don't necessarily want to, but people have got their own stuff going on in their own world and their own challenges. And life is so fast paced that, you know, not that they haven't got time for you, but then when they don't understand something, especially, and when you can't articulate it, where do you go from there? So yeah. I'm trying to work this out and just keep up at the same time. So yeah, it's just dilemma after dilemma. So I did fall into deep depression. My exercise was actually saving me. That was the only one good thing that I was good at and that was helping me. I had some fantastic friends, obviously, that was all around me. But they were just daily challenges were just grinding me down. My job when my career was looking less likely. I was going to be able to sustain that job. And one good thing we tried to do on the year mark of the injury was a half marathon. Challenged myself to do a half marathon.
My knees still cuss you each morning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, mate. Do you know what? In early recovery, there was one day when I worked out that I couldn't. I had my. Do you know your visual memory? Mm-hmm. I ask you guys to think about someone that you love or think about your house. You will see that. You know, I couldn't see anything, so that was blank. So I couldn't. That's nothing. You imagine how many visual memories you're passing through your mind constantly every day. And I literally nothing. And when I spoke to neuropsychology, they said, "We're not sure you'll get that back." And so the birth of my son, for example, and you know, memories that will stick, the visual memories that you want to stay forever. My childhood and everything else, school. So I knew who I was, but I just couldn't see anything. And when I was at the gym and I built up my confidence, I started doing some small runs around the block. You know, when I wanted the gym, you know, I enhanced my training with some small runs. And actually, it was when I was running, and when Gemma had done a playlist for me with some music, some old tunes that I liked, I had flashes of images come back, and it was exercise and music that did that for me. And you imagine the feeling, you know, it was just
wow.
Yeah, it was just.
It must have felt addictive, right?
Oh, it was
just like wanted more.
Unbelievable, honestly. I just can't tell you how powerful that was for me at the time. And at the time, I probably didn't recognise it as much as what I would because I was short on my thinking. But you know, looking back, it was huge, a huge milestone. And I worked with my neuropsychologist with on different techniques of looking at photos and then trying to sort of conjure up that image in lots of other things, which was what I was doing. But that was awesome. And so I kept running because I wanted to see more stuff and you know, and hopefully help myself as much as I could, and the endorphins and everything else. And this health and fitness lifestyle that I got into was helping me so much. It really was. Like I say, I believe it saved me.
And so, how did one half marathon turn into creating a charity to having even a mascot within that charity? I remember there was one point I was coming through the city and it's one of the big billboards by side of the road with you on it and your logo, and I was like, there it goes. It's like amazing. And you've managed to, along the way, you managed to persuade a number of lads to have their kit off and the whole Monty and charity calendars and stuff like that. But How, just give me a bit of insight into that charity, because it's just grown from strength to strength over the years, to even having you were backed by a businessman in the city, which then provided income, if I remember right, and you get your license back so you could drive, and to building your own community. Give us a little insight into that.
So I'll try and do it in a short way, in a nutshell, because I'll just talk forever about all the different things. So, on the first year anniversary, I wanted to put to bed what happened to me. Never wanted to look back on that day and always think about it, in bad taste. So do something good. Support the hospital, obviously the people who saved me in early recovery, and create some new memories, and positive ones with friends and family. I asked friends to run this half marathon with me, and 70 amazing people got involved in that run. These people wouldn't generally run for a bus, and there they were training for this half marathon, and we raised 17 grand for Hull Royal Infirmary, which was just amazing to be able to go there and present that to the staff. Really, really, really unbelievable. And so my journey continued. Long story short, I ended up having some tests done at the 2-year mark of brain recovery. They deemed that key attributes I needed for my job, I was unlikely to ever get better at, and they said to me, "You need to leave. You tried in vain. You need to go." I'd got up to 3 days on site. I was still slow, if I'm honest with you. I could do it, but it wasn't any good for me. If I'm honest. It was a daily reminder of the injury. I said to my gaffer, "I need to leave." He said, "Stay. You're well thought about the company. The lads will look after you." But I was hiding behind people, and it just didn't feel right. Didn't feel right. At this time, obviously, I'd struggled with a relationship and friendships. Friendships had faltered. You do get to know your friends are, certainly, whilst you're going through recovery. And so there was a lot of pain, a lot of loss, but there was a lot of, I was just trying to make a good job out of a bad situation, really, with the run. I did end up getting in men's health later on in the second year of recovery, which was fantastic. I sent a profile off. I'd worked hard to be aesthetically pleasing, but more importantly for me at the time, it was more I was feeling mentally. And that, pre-brain injury, I'd always gone, if I had gone to a gym, I'm not really a gym goer, but if I'd gone, it was probably just before I went on holiday or something like that, just superficial and all that sort of stuff. But actually now when I train and when I'm running and training, it's all for my mental health, first and foremost. Everything else on the outside falls into place from there anyway. But I think a lot of people have got...
It's a byproduct, right? Yeah, it's a byproduct.
Byproducts, yeah. And so I was learning lots whilst I was going through recovery. Like I said, at the 2-year mark, I left work and I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do in my life? And my recovery journey hadn't been helped by the lack of community support. I was blessed. In fact, I was privileged with a fantastic family and great friendships that had helped me. I know that everybody's got that. And so I was thinking about people that maybe were struggling. I thought, I can't be the only one that's sat here. I've lost my job and my whole world just crumbled around me. There must be the people that I can talk to. And so I decided to do a timeline of my recovery, and it was giving an insight into how it is to live with a brain injury, ways in which I was acting in early recovery. I couldn't explain then. I could now. I felt that might be helpful for other people. I could be a voice for other people. It wasn't all doom and gloom. I'd achieved a half marathon, would raise some money and all this sort of stuff. So I did this timeline. Again, my family thought I'd gone bonkers. Down came the little pretty picture in the living room, and up went a whiteboard. And they're like, "What are you doing, Paul? You're going to get yourself a little job?" And I was like, "No, I'm doing a timeline of my recovery journey. It's going to help people." And they were like, "Oh, what is he doing?" and I had all these post-it notes all over my house. It took me months to do it because of my poor memory. But I just knew something again inside me, deep inside me, said, "You've got to do this." And I did. And I published this page on Facebook. And people were messaging me saying, "Will you come and see my mum? Will you come and see my dad? Will you come and see my brother, my sister?" So I was actively going out in the community and seeing these people. I was passing on some knowledge, that I'd learned, and encouraging the sort of this healthy sort of lifestyle and recovery that helped me. And so they said, "Will you come back?" I did start going weekly to people's houses. It quickly became a 24/7 operation. Schools asked me to go in to talk about mental health and anxiety and vulnerability. And I was talking openly on my social media about that because I realised just how communication was key for me on my own journey. And I missed a bit there. In between that year 1 to 2, when I really was struggling with depression, I was reluctant to go and access some support. And when I did, it changed my life. You know, I had a psychotherapist, and that was huge for me and my function, my performance, my whole outlook on life changed. But,
well, we've seen a huge movement, haven't we? Especially when it comes to men. You know, Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion of the world, boxer, and he's there, sharing his struggles. And I don't even think 10 years ago we would have experienced that, let alone, and that's not that long ago. So it's great that social media can be called for a number of reasons, but what we are seeing is a bit of a movement here, aren't we? I know you have some involvement with Andy's Man Club in Hull, and I'm looking at getting some insight and getting those boys on board as well and on the show. Yeah. So no, it's great. Did you find that was a real, from not wanting help to then being able to share help, the help that you received and why and the benefits to it, that there was a bit of a movement there?
Yeah, I just knew how powerful it was on my own journey. I wanted to sort of share that. I think once you sort of work up to it, and once you got the shackles off and the stigma didn't have me anymore, I just thought, this has completely changed my life, and I need to make sure that everybody else knows about it. Anyone that wants to listen, if you like. Mm-hmm. And people don't need to be afraid. Open up, access support. And so I started talking about that on social media. Like you say, there is a big movement, James, and I think it's fantastic, and it continues to grow. And I hope it grows. And we'd look at statistics around male suicide, and it's just tragic. It really is. And so I'm an advocate of just getting all the support that you need and having them open conversations. And Andy's Man Club are a massive movement in helping with that. And there are great lads as well, Leon and Paul, who run it in Hull. So I was doing this, and then schools started asking me to go in and share my story and being open about counselling. And then the Hull Royal Infirmary asked me to go in and talk to patients and families during early recovery. I was a man. I'd done some good stuff, and I was a positive, a positive outlook. And I could offer that hope and inspiration to people in early recovery who were like me, who thought, how was my life going to go? And so, I was more than happy to do that and to have that positive influence on people. So this quickly became a 24/7 operation. I didn't necessarily have any training in this. I was going to people's houses and sort of sitting with them and talking about recovery. Looking back at me, people, it seems a bit dodgy, really. But,
which is a huge step forward, because it wasn't that long prior that you were sitting and looking out of a window and not being able to go to the corner shop, and then you find yourself in a position where you're in people's homes and talking about your own recovery.
Yeah.
Instilling confidence and being in a position of somewhat inspiration to many. I mean, you were maxed, weren't you? You were absolutely maxed at that time.
I really was, and I didn't really have to think about it. I think I was still short on my thinking. My cognitive deficits hadn't gone away. I just learned to live with them, and I adapted, and I'd implemented coping strategies to help me. So even when I was I was very busy and talking to people, I wasn't necessarily thinking deeply into it. I was just doing it. I was just out and about doing what I needed to do, and that was it. I was just very focused. And then, actually, when it did start really ramping up, I said to myself, I didn't necessarily realise I'd said this to myself in early recovery, but I will do anything to make this work. Do anything. I'll push myself physically and mentally to in any stretch. I have to. I will do this to make it work and reach people and help them and help families. And then I was prepared to, and actually that has been one of my one of the biggest game changers for me. I'm still prepared to now. I push myself in situations. I've honestly, I think I am vulnerable to a certain degree with the way I am. But actually, that notion of I'll do anything to make this work. I've been sitting in sort of meetings with solicitors, with marketing meetings. I was sitting, I was on site with the lads. I didn't sit with solicitors. I didn't sit with people in marketing. I didn't sit with nurses and doctors. I didn't sit with neuropsychologists. But I was sitting there and I was just sort of holding on. And sometimes I was just thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about. The lingo on site is very different to the lingo in these talks. I was just sitting there thinking, I've not got a clue, but I just held on. I just held on. And sometimes I was just brave. and you know, I just got to be brave. You just got to sit there, be polite, you know, be polite and well mannered. And if what you don't know, you get someone later on, one of the people that are in that room, and share you know, do it in the right way.
Well, you've even created, because you touched on nutrition for the mind, because we're inundated online with marketing and advertising on magical shakes that'll detox you, that'll, you know, the meal plans, all of that. But there seems a real lack, and I know this from when you started looking out, and it was key with your recovery, was there's nothing really there that promotes healthy minds in terms of nutrition, that something you can purchase. And you actually then was like, right, I'm going to create something. I'm going to go down this road. And I mean, you found yourself sitting with like industry experts within the food and drink industry, right? And what is it? So give us an insight to that. So you literally have a bar on the market, right? That's what
Brainworks. Well, actually, we're just reformulating our products. So that they're going to be relaunching, actually, well, given the current situation, probably in autumn now. But there's a drink, there's a Brainworks drink and some Brainworks bars, snack bars that are healthy nutrients for the brain. We're just going back, sorry, I know I'm jumping about, but just going back to helping people in the community. Became a 24/7 operation. I'll do anything to make this work. And then what happened was a guy contacted me and said, will you come and do some sort of talks to people that I'm working with, they're affected by cancer? And I said, I work with people with brain injuries. I mean, I work with people with brain injuries, but that's what, you know, I've found myself, which was pretty unbelievable at the time. I said, I know I work with people with brain injuries. I'm supporting these people and trying to help them. And he said, oh no, but you face adversity. These people have gone through adversity and they're trying to rebuild their lives. You're rebuilding your life in a really healthy way. And so I said, oh yeah, no, I was quite flattered. I said, that's nice of you. You know, if I can have a positive influence on anybody else, I'm more than happy to. And so he wanted me to go with him to get to secure some funding for this what he wanted to do, these support groups. And he said, you need to come and meet a guy called P.A.U.L with me. So I said, all right. So and I heard the name. Obviously, Neil is a huge businessman, a successful businessman in our city, and obviously with Hull Kingston Rovers. So I knew who he was. I said, what do you want me to meet Neil for? And he said, oh, well, you can say that you're working with me. You're doing some good stuff in the city. It'll be good. It'll be good for my bid. So I said, all right then. And at the time, if I'm honest, lads, I wasn't going to go. Because I sort of thought, I felt a bit daft. I thought, well, he wouldn't want to meet me. And I wasn't going to go, but I felt for this guy and I said I would meet him. So I did. I followed it through. I thought, I can't let him down. I'll just sit there and look daft if I have to, sort of thing. And so, and I went, and actually I had a great conversation with Neil. Neil is an amazing man. He really is. He helps so many organisations within our community. And I didn't know this at the time necessarily, but I went on to. And we had a chat and he says, I'd like you to be an ambassador for the firm, for Hull Solicitors. And actually, no, let me go back a bit. So what happened was, sorry. Yeah, no, so he said that. So he said, I'd like to be an ambassador for our firm. So I'll follow it through and I'll sort of turn it around. Ambassador for the firm. So, I was flattered again. And he said, obviously helping people affected by a brain injury, Hull Solicitors. And I was, it gave me a real feeling of purposefulness and self-worth, which I'd completely lost, lads. I'd lost my career. And there was a lot of times during recovery where I did feel worthless, inadequate, a burden, all these negative things. And here was a guy called P.A.U.L, very successful man in our city, was asking me to be an ambassador for his solicitors. Huge moment. And at this time, I'd been to see the NHS to get some support for what I was doing, because more and more people contacted me. And I actually thought, well, I can't deal with this. How am I going to help all these people? And so, obviously going back, quite a brain injury, one every 90 seconds. It wasn't just me that would feel isolated. There's lots of people out in our community and around the country that are struggling, and families that are struggling. And so I went to the NHS. I had a meeting with the commissioners and the chief officer, Emma Latimer. And, I said, I'm helping people in the community. Can you help me? And they said, you need to go and get a business plan and come back. So I actually confidently said, I will. Walked out and thought, I don't know what a business plan is.
So yes, and worry about it later kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah, it's complete, yeah. And I didn't have a clue again how I was going to do it. And then about 2 weeks later, I got asked to go and see this meeting with Neil. So I just thought I'll go away and find the right people that can help me. And when I just chat with Neil, and he said, "What are you up to? How far you on with stuff?" And this, that, the other. And I said, "I need a business plan for the NHS." And he said, "Yeah, no probs." So he helped me with that. And Neil actually took me to another level with the registering the charity as a UK registered charity. It's hard to do that. There's a lot of charity governance around all that. Obviously, rightly so. It's got to be very transparent, your objectives in place, and all that. And Neil helped me with that. Remember, I was an electrician. Never had any training with any of this. Trustees, charity governance, charity constitution. What's that? Public service. Working with the NHS. There was so much stuff, and I'll do anything to make this work. Was up my driver all the time. And actually, I was really lucky. I had Neil helping me, and obviously his workforce supporting me with that. And I was really fortunate again. One of our friends, James, Phil Benson.
Yep.
At this time, while this was going on, I started doing some blogs with food. To go back to the food aspect, my meals and my family, including these ingredients in my meals, and I'll always credit with food helping me, nourishing me and help making me feel my best. We all know how we feel. If we go out for a weekend and we crap all weekend, you don't feel good, do you? You don't wake up on a Monday, you're not bouncing, you're not ready for it, you're not energized. You eat well all weekend, you feel completely different. You feel different here, you feel different here. Food matters. And it matters especially when you're when the most complex computer on earth is trying to build new neural pathways. You've got to give it some good nutrients to help it along the way. And so I hooked up with a restaurant called Al Porto on Marina. Sadly, it's not there now. It's shut down. This was going back a long time ago. And I was creating healthy meals, and we were including brain health ingredients, and we were blogging about it. And I was sorry, I forgot where I went then. So I was blogging.
Cleaning meals.
yeah. So we're blogging about meals. We created a recipe book actually to give out at Hull Royal Infirmary and for people. And then I went to see Phil because I had this idea about having a business with snack bars and drinks. And Phil had obviously had Zing Smoothie, didn't he? So
he was in business with Simon Long, who we interviewed on our very first episode. Yeah, that's
right. So I just emailed Phil real randomly. I don't think I necessarily, want like big pals or anything like that. But I was just sort of going out there, and I was just contacting people who I thought might help. And I think pre-brain injury, I would have been reluctant to do that because I would have had this flood of thoughts about why I shouldn't really do that and what will they think of me and this, that, the other. And after brain injury, I didn't have any of those thoughts anymore. So I was just doing everything that I needed to do. And I wasn't bothered about the consequences. I don't think about it. I don't have to play myself at harm necessarily, but and that has really helped me as well, which I'll go on to talk about. But so I went to see Phil. Phil, I spoke about the charity and how it was helping there, and he gave me some good ideas with the brain food concept and how I could develop that. And he said, "Who's helping you?" So what do you mean? He said, "Well, you're going to see all these people. You've got brain injury yourself. You're going to see all these people. Sorry, that's going to be difficult for you to manage your own mental health." And I said, "Oh no, it was just that I'm prepared to do anything to make this work," sort of attitude. But Phil could see that I was vulnerable here, and this could end up maybe potentially with me obviously bearing my own head out and becoming ill. And so Phil introduced me to a lady called Sue Altas, and Sue Altas is an amazing person, very experienced in terms of mental health. She's got a few companies actually. One of them's called Altas Cheshire. She's got Inspire Ignite. She does mental health capacity assessments.
She's also a member of FEO. I know Sue. Worked with Sue on a number of occasions, yeah.
And Sue said to me at the time, are you getting any support? And at the time, I'd been discharged from neurorehabilitation. I'd 2 years under my neuropsychologist, and so I never had any sort of support. And Sue, so thankful, and it's so lovely. She's so kind. She said to me, I just got my license back at the time. And I had another driving test and I was able to drive. Come to my house in South Cave on a Friday between 12 and 2 and I'll help you. I'll give you some therapy if you need it. And we'll also look at your plans with your business plan. It's all right, you're getting this business plan, but what are you going to deliver when you're there and how are you going to do it? And I didn't have all the answers. I was just moving forward. I was just sort of like momentum. And it was all these people that were helping me and forming and shaping what would become P.A.U.L for Brain Recovery, but I couldn't do it alone. You know, there was no way I could do it alone. And Sue was a real standout person. She's still my mentor today. She still helps me. And I went down every Friday. She spoke to me about trustees, what that involved, about charity constitution. She was just educating me so much. And she had my back in terms of my own mental health, helping me. And so Sue helping me with that side, and obviously Neil helping me. And we went back to the NHS. We had the business plan, and we opened the first community-based brain recovery centre in Hull City in 2016.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Do you know, it was phenomenal. I just got back from a stint in Asia. I was in Asia over the winter and come back, and we helped with the video promotion side of things. And it was such a proud moment, none more than for yourself, really. It was incredible. Do you know what I think what feels right to do is we do a second episode very soon, and we focus then solely on the charity and the product in terms of business, because what we've done is we've got an amazing backstory now which will resonate a lot with mental health, and we'll line you up in the next few days, mate, to do how that building of an organisation looks like, and then also in terms of a food product range and actual business off the back of that as well. So I hate to put the brakes on, but I think that lends itself to do a second episode off the back of this.
Yeah.
But as we've looked deep into your incident and clear trauma there's a question I've always been interested to know, and I've always thought if I ever interviewed you, I would always be curious on asking this. And it's hindsight's a wonderful thing, and your life is so different now off the back of what is a huge tragedy. With this in mind, would you, if you could, would you go back to that day, you know, looking at how life has changed and all of this positivity that's happened since?
Yeah.
What would you do if you were given a magic wand? Would you go back and change and have that former life? And without I'm very curious.
It's funny you should ask me this. I was doing a talk to 300 students at Mallet Lambert recently. One of the students asked me exactly the same thing. If you could go back, would you walk in that on that day? Would you walk in that pub? And that's it stumped me. It did, and I sort of thought, well, and I sort of stood there for a second, and obviously it's very complex question, really.
Yeah.
And the answer is, honestly, I would really dread having to go through the 3 years from 2012 to 2015, 3 years of hell. You know, I did have some fantastic support along the way, but you know, just the loss, the torture, the torment, the frustration, acceptance, what happened to me, learning about who I was, learning to love myself again. I could talk to you. I mean, we spoke for a bit, lads. I believe you and me, I could talk to you for a bit.
I think we know that. That's all good, mate.
I would dread to go through that again. I ain't joking, lads. It was awful. It really was awful. I would dread to go through that again, but I would go through it again. I would walk in that bar, and I would go through that for what has become and how it's helped to the people, you know, and the charity and the families, and obviously the supporting of and the guiding people affected by acquired brain injury, and actually in doing that and supporting others has really enriched my own life and pushed my boundaries, you know, enriched my recovery more than I ever imagined it ever would. Going back to that, I'll do anything to make this work. Enriched my recovery beyond words. You know, 26 marathons in now, and UK Ironman, I've been around the world. I mean, just extraordinary. The things I've been doing, I can't even quite believe it. But really, it was for wanting to do what's right and make a difference in the community and support other people. With really, there weren't many people talking about acquired brain injury and how it feels, and really to be a voice and to give other people a platform now for their voice to be heard. Then yeah, I would go through it again. Absolutely, for them, definitely. You know, and for them and for how it's helped me rediscover myself and reinvent myself in a really healthy and productive way. Obviously, and my kids have seen me literally from the depths of despair, looking through them, penniless, not having a clue, sort of scratching my head, to becoming this figure, and a healthy figure who is sort of supporting others and pushing his own boundaries to do that. I think that's actually been, and the kids have said that's a huge influence on their lives. But yeah, the answer is I'd walk in there. Yeah, I would. Like I say, I'd dread it, if I'm honest.
Inspirational stuff, mate. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to then delving into the business side of things. You know, how do you set up a charity?
Yeah.
That process, the team you've built around you, and then also going into the business world and the network you've got with the product. Yeah, that'd be well. I'll look forward to diving into that. But where can people find? Is it Paul for brainrecovery.co.uk? And that's with the number 4, not FOUR. Number 4.
Yeah, Paul for Brain Recovery. FOR brainrecovery.co.uk. And there's brainworkswell.co.uk. For the
awesome
products, and then obviously people can look at the new formula that we've got coming soon, which is really, really exciting.
Well, that will lead us on to our next episode where we'll delve into the business side of your journey.
Once you get me going, that's it.
We'll get a talking stick shipped off.
Yeah, you could do that with me. Yeah. I think so much has gone on. It's difficult to try and contain it, or help people understand it in a very short way.
And why should you try and edit it for what somebody else might deem appropriate? You know, you've got such a story, and even now it's condensing it so much because there's so many trials and tribulations there, and huge positives that have come out of your journey. That, you know, I think it's almost criminal to think of what would resonate with someone else, or how long would somebody be up for listening into, and all of that. And the beauty of this is we'll be taking micro pieces from this and putting them out there, because there's so many things that you've said that are so inspiring, mate. And this is exactly why I was so excited to get you on the show, and for others to hear your journey and how inspiring you as an individual constantly are. So we will have you on again very, very soon in the next few days, mate. We'll do that, delve into the product range, how to build an organisation and charity, which will just instill confidence for many out there, because there's a lot of people in a position now where they've lost their income, they've lost their job. This is an opportunity for people to think, right, why don't I start a business like I've always wanted to? Why don't I help people like I've always wanted to? You know, Phil and I looked at what the resources we had, and we said, let's start podcasts and talk to people and inspire many as much as we can. So with that in mind, thank you for joining us today, for being an inspiration to many. We'll literally resonate with thousands of people who watch and listen to this show, and we'll look forward to having you on the show soon, mate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Phil. Thank you.
Paul Spence, thank you very much, mate. We'll speak soon.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Lockdown.
Please comment, like, share and subscribe to help build our global community.
We look forward to seeing you all soon.